So we come to the British bantamweight boxing title history, video 1, and we start in 1891. The division is 118 pounds, or 8 stone 8 pounds, just over 8.5 stone. So we start in 1891. Yeah, not long before Sullivan fought Paddy Ryan, I think, in a bare knuckle. But anyway, this is the gloved. Well, I think it's the gloved. It's just that bare knuckle error. So I presume this is, yeah, it'd be 15 rounds. So April the 2nd, 1891. Billy Plymmer wins by retirement in the 15th round against Jim Stevens in London, England. And in 1895, May the 28th, 1895, Billy Plymmer wins by KO in the 7th round against George Caulfield in London, England. Then November the 25th, 1895. Tom Pedler Palmer, to say he resided in Brighton, wins by disqualification in the 14th round against Billy Plymmer, London, England. 1898, February 25th, 1898, Joe Barrett wins on points over 12 rounds against Joe Elms in Birmingham, England. December the 12th, 1898, Tom Pedler Palmer wins in the 17th round. Referee stops the fight against Billy Plymmer, London, England. And then we got 1900, the year of the first, it's the second modern Olympic Games, if you're not including the Liverpool Games further back. But it is in Paris, France, and that is the first one in Paris, in France, shall I say. And so we've got May the 28th, 1900. Like I say, the year of Paris Olympics. May 28th, 1900. Tom Pedler Palmer wins on points over 15 rounds against Harry Ware in London, England. November the 12th, 1900. Harry Ware wins on points over 20 rounds against Tom Pedler Palmer in London, England. February the 13th, 1902. Andrew Tuchel wins on points over 20 rounds against Harry Ware in London, England. Then May the 12th, 1902. Andrew Tuchel wins on points over 20 rounds against Jim Williams in London, England. Then September the 8th, 1902. Harry Ware wins by disqualification in the 8th round against Andrew Tuchel in London, England. December the 15th, 1902. Joe Boker wins on points over 15 rounds against Harry Ware in London, England. Then May the 25th, 1903. Joe Boker wins on points over 15 rounds against Andrew Tuchel in London, England. Now, October 3rd, 1903. Joe Boker wins on points over 15 rounds against Bill King in London, England. 1904. Now again, the first USA Olympics, and yeah, the first, I think that was in St. Louis. The next one was in Los Angeles. Yeah. So 1932. So May the 30th, 1904. Joe Boker wins on points over 20 rounds against Owen Moran from Birmingham in London, England. And October, so we got 1910, the same year, Jack Johnson pulls Jim Jeffries, or the public, not him, pulled Jim Jeffries out of retirement to get beaten for 15 rounds. Like I say, it was the same year that, on July the 4th. July the 5th, the day after, or on the night, there was lynchings all over USA. But anyway, so October the 17th, back to this. I digress a little bit there, going off into history. October the 17th, 1910, George Digger Stanley. He wins the Lonsdale bout second time, I think, there, yeah. Wins by KO in the 8th round against Joe Boca in London, England. And December the 5th, 1910, George Digger Stanley wins on points over 20 rounds against Johnny Condon in London, England. Then we got September the 14th, 1911, George Digger Stanley wins on points over 20 rounds against Ike Bradley in Liverpool, England. Then we got 1912. Now this same year, on July the 4th, you had Ad Wolgast beat Mex and Joe Rivers, and Jack Welsh was the referee, and they both went down, and he pulled his fighter up, which was Wolgast, then counted Rivers out, where he left him on the ground. Controversial fight that year. That was in the world scene. He's lighter fighters, yeah. So October the 21st, 1912, George Digger Stanley wins on points over 20 rounds against Alex Lafferty in London, England. Then June the 2nd, 1913, Bill Bainon wins on points over 20 rounds against George Digger Stanley in London, England. Then October the 27th, 1913, George Digger Stanley wins a Lonsdale bout, wins on points over 20 rounds against Bill Bainon in London, England. Then we got 1914, the starting of the First World War. April the 20th, 1914, Con Curly Walker wins by disqualification in the 13th round against George Digger Stanley in London, England. Then November the 22nd, 1915, Joe Fox wins in the 16th round. Referee stops the fight against Jimmy Berry in London, England. Then April the 17th, 1916, Joe Fox wins in the 20th round on points against Tommy Harrison in London, England. Then June 25th, 1917, Joe Fox gets the Lonsdale bout. Joe Fox wins, referee stops the fight in the 18th round against Joe Simmons in London, England. Then 1918, at the end of the First World War, we got November the 25th, 1918. Tommy Noble wins on points over 20 rounds against Joe Simmons in London, England. Then June the 30th, 1919, Walter Ross wins in the 10th round. Referee stops the fight against Tommy Noble in London, England. Then February 23rd, 1920, Jimmy Higgins wins in the 13th round. Referee stops the fight against Harold Jones in London, England. In 1920, it was the same year as the Belgium Olympics in Antwerp. And then we got November the 29th, 1920. Jim Higgins wins on points over 20 rounds against Billy Anon in London, England. Then we got 1921, or January the 31st, 1921. Jimmy Higgins gets his Lonsdale bout. Jimmy Higgins wins on points over 20 rounds against Ernie Kid Simmons in London, England. Then June 26th, 1922, Tommy Harrison, not the Tommy Harrison of the 60s, who fought Floyd Patterson at heavy, different guy, obviously. June 26th, 1922, Tommy Harrison wins by KO in the 13th round against Jim Higgins in Liverpool, England. Then February 26th, 1923, Burglar Harry Lake. Burglar? It must be Burglar. Burglar Harry Lake wins on points over 20 rounds against Tommy Harrison in London, England. And then November 29th, 1923, Johnny Brown wins on points over 20 rounds against Burglar Harry Lake, or Burglar Harry Lake, I don't know what it is, London, England. Then February 23rd, 1925, Johnny Brown wins by retirement in the 16th round against Harry Corbett. in London, England. Then October the 9th, 1925, Johnny Brown gets his Lonsdale bout. Johnny Brown wins by KO in the 12th round against Mick Hill in London, England. And then 1928, really successful USA team year for the Olympics. They were in Amsterdam. Netherlands or Holland. So June 4th, 1928, Alf Kidd Pattenden wins by KO in the 12th round against George Kidd Nicholson in London, England. Then August 29th, 1928, Teddy Baldock wins. In the second round, referee stops the fight against Johnny Brown in London, England. Then November the 25th, 1928, Alfie Kidd Pattenden wins by retirement in the 12th round against young Johnny Brown in London, England. Then 1929, the year of the stock market crash, we have May the 16th, 1929. Teddy Baldock wins the 15th round against Alf Kidd Pattenden in London, England. Then December the 21st, 1931, Dick Corbett wins on points over 15 rounds against Johnny King in Manchester, England. Then we got 1932, the USA Olympics. Second USA Olympics at that time, or the Modern Olympics, October the 10th, 1932, Johnny King wins on points over 15 rounds against Dick Corbett in Manchester, England. Then 1934, when Italy win the Soccer World Cup in Italy. Here we are, February the 12th, 1934, Dick Corbett wins on points over 15 rounds against Johnny King in Manchester. August 20th, 1934, Dick Corbett draws over 15 rounds with Johnny King in London, England. Then May the 27th, 1935, Johnny King picks up the Lonsdale bout. Johnny King wins on points over 15 rounds against Len Hampston in Manchester, England. And May the 31st, 1937, Johnny King wins by KO in the 13th round against Jackie Brown in Manchester, England. Johnny King picks up his second Lonsdale bout. Johnny King, yes, so we go. June the 22nd, 1938, Johnny King picks up his second Lonsdale bout. Johnny King wins by disqualification in the third round against Len Hampston in Leeds, England. February the 10th, 1947, Jackie Patterson wins by KO in the 7th round against Johnny King in Manchester, England. October the 20th, 1947, Jackie Patterson wins by KO in the 5th round against Norman Lewis in London, England. Then, March 24th, 1949, Stan Rowan wins on points over 15 rounds against Jackie Patterson in Liverpool, England. In December the 13th, 1949, Danny Sullivan wins by retirement on the cut against Teddy Gardner in London, England. Now we have that year, 11 fights in the year for Sugar Ray Robinson in 1951, beating LaMotta in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, stopping him for the first time, or the first time he stopped him in all them fights in sick fight, 5-1 tally for Robinson, and losing and winning to Randolph Turpin from Leamington Spa, England, within a 60-day period, winning his title back in the USA, but losing it here in England on July the 10th, 1951, the middleweight title. But here we are in the bantamweights, 1951, May the 9th, 1951, Peter Keenan wins by KO in the 6th round against Danny O'Sullivan in Glasgow, Scotland. June the 27th, 1951, Peter Keenan wins in the 12th round. Referee stops the fight against Bobby Boland in Glasgow, England. Then January 28th, 1953, Peter Keenan gets his Lonsdale bout. Peter Keenan wins. Referee stops the fight in the 7th round against Frank Williams in Paisley, Scotland. And then October the 3rd, 1953, John Kelly wins on points over 15 rounds against Peter Keenan in Belfast, Ireland. 1954, the year West Germany win the World Soccer Cup in Switzerland, the only time it's been held there to this date. We got September the 21st, 1954. Peter Keenan wins by KO in the 6th round against John Kelly in Paisley. And December 11th, 1954. Peter Keenan wins on points over 15 rounds against George O'Neill in Belfast, Ireland. Then May the 22nd, 1957, Peter Keenan gets his second Lonsdale bout. Peter Keenan wins. Referee stops the fight in the 6th round against John Smillie in Glasgow, Scotland. And January the 10th, 1959, Freddie Gilroy wins. Referee stops the fight in the 11th round against Peter Keenan in Belfast, Ireland. 1960. Now this is the same year. Muhammad Ali wins the light heavyweight gold at the Rome Olympics. And he also has 2 fights that year, turning pro. His first fight is Tony Hunsucker in his hometown, Louisville, Kentucky. He wins on points. That was on 29th of October 1960. And then he stopped Herb Seller on the 27th of December 1960 also. But we're here in the bantamweights now, the British bantamweights. So, March the 19th, 1960, Freddie Gilroy wins. Referee stops the fight in the 13th round against Billy Rafferty in Belfast. Then 1962, year of the only Chile World Cup in Santiago, Chile, where Brazil win that World Cup. Another team with Pelé in that Soccer World Cup. So, back to boxing. March the 3rd, 1962, Freddie Gilroy wins his Lonsdale bout by KO in the 12th round against Billy Rafferty. Freddie Gilroy wins. Referee stops the fight in the 13th round on a cut against Billy Rafferty in Belfast, Ireland. But I've gone to, that's in 1960. Okay, but I'm going to 62 now. March the 3rd, 1962, Freddie Gilroy wins that Lonsdale bout then by KO in the 12th round against Billy Rafferty again. He beats him in Belfast, Ireland. Then October the 20th, 1962, Freddie Gilroy wins by retirement in the 9th round against Johnny Caldwell on a cut in Belfast, Ireland. 1964, year of the Tokyo Olympics, where Joe Frazier wins gold, coming as a substitute for Buster Mathis. He hurt his hand. He lost to Buster Mathis, but again, Fraser would win against a German in the final, an ex-wrestler. Amateur wrestler, freestyle wrestler, or Greco-Roman 1 and 2. March the 5th, 1964, Johnny Caldwell wins. Referee stops the fight in the 7th round on a cut against George Bowes in Belfast, Ireland. Then 1965. This is the same year that they now changed his name to Ali. Second fight against Sonny Liston. The first fight in 64, his name was Cassius Clay. This fight, it was Ali. That's what we know him as now. But again, that was on May the 25th of this year, 1965. But this is March 22nd, 1965. Alan Ruckin from Liverpool wins. Referee stops the fight in the 10th round against Johnny Caldwell because of a cut in London, England. Then September the 6th, 1966, both cracking fighters, Ruckin and McGowan. Walter McGowan wins on points over 15 rounds against Alan Ruckin in London, England. Then 1968, year of the Mexico Olympics, which George Foreman wins gold there, beating Russians, all sorts there on his way. May the 13th, 1968, Alan Ruckin wins on points over 15 rounds, gets his revenge against Walter McGowan in Manchester, England. So, June the 9th, 1969, Alan Ruckin gets his Lonsdale bout. Alan Ruckin from Liverpool gets his Lonsdale bout. Alan Ruckin wins by retirement, 11th round against Evan Armstrong in Manchester, England. 1970, the year Brazil won the World Cup in Mexico. First of their 2 times it's been held in Mexico, that Soccer World Cup. Like I say, Gordon Banks does a save of the century. It's Pelé. So, we're back to boxing. April the 21st, 1970, Alan Ruckin from Liverpool wins. Referee stops the fight in the 12th round against Johnny Clark in London, England. 1972, year of the Munich Olympics. Yeah, again, wasn't a good time what went on. Obviously the kidnappings of the athletes. And Tifilio Stevenson makes a appearance for Cuba. That's in Munich Olympics in Germany. So January 25th, 1972, Alan Ruckin from Liverpool wins on points over 15 rounds against Johnny Clark in London, England. Then 1973 we're on now. Okay, so February 20th, 1973, Johnny Clark wins on points over 15 rounds against Paddy Maguire in London, England. Then we have 1974. This was the year of the second Fraser-Ali match. Ali getting his revenge. I think it's Arthur McCanty, the referee. There was always a little bit of controversy about in the second round if he got in there when Ali was about to stop him. I'm not too sure with Fraser, but real rivalry. 28th of January that was 1974, but this is December the 10th, 1974. Dave Needham in the bantamweight division wins on points over 15 rounds against Paddy Maguire in Nottingham, England. 1975, year of the Thriller Manila. Yeah, that was October the 1st, 1975. Both fighters never the same. The only stoppage out of these three trilogy fights. But yeah, he couldn't come out for the 15th. Fraser, Eddie Futch stopped the fight, saying, "No one will forget what you done here, son." As he realised his other eye was swelling up, and he obviously Fraser apparently had been slightly blind in one eye, even in the amateurs. So that would have meant sending him out completely blind. But yeah, so October the 20th though, 1975, Paddy Maguire wins. Referee stops the fight in the 14th round against Dave Needham in London, England. Now 1977, November the 29th, 1977. The matchstick man Johnny Owen, cracking fighter. Such a shame. He unfortunately the fatality, he died against Luke Pinter. Yeah, so January 29th, 1977, Johnny Owen wins. Referee stops the fight in the 11th round. It's Paddy Maguire in London, England. A Welsh fighter, really cracking fighter was Johnny Owen, relentless, and he was doing really well with Pinter, who really was a good fighter. But he would reunite with Johnny Owen's father years later when they unveiled a statue towards Johnny Owen. Really touching story. Johnny Owen's dad went over to meet him first, and he come to this country to unveil that statue. I think he even stayed with the family. Luke Pinter, yeah, cracking guy and brilliant fighter also, both of them. That was the 14th round that happened in, but 1980 I think, from what I remember. But anyway, I'm going to come straight back to this, where he's doing very well, Johnny Owen, in his career, as he always did. So 1978, the year of the Argentina Soccer World Cup, where Argentina won. April the 6th, 1978, Johnny Owens wins. Referee stops the fight in the 10th round against Wayne Evans in Abu Dhabi in Wales, hometown for Johnny Owens. June the 13th, 1979. Still young here, Johnny Owens. June the 13th, 1979. Johnny Owens wins the Lonsdale belt. Johnny Owens wins by retirement in the 12th round against Dave Smith in Caerphilly, Wales. 1980, year of the Moscow Olympics, which USA boycotted. And Steve Ovett, sometimes I mistake it, say Steve Cram, it's Steve Ovett and Sebco have their rivalry, both winning each other's events in this Moscow Olympics. So so June the 28th, 1980, Johnny Owens wins on points over 15 rounds against John Feeney in London, England. Then September the 22nd, 1981, John Feeney wins in the 8th round. Referee stops the fight against Dave Smith in London, England. January 25th, 1983, Q Russell wins by disqualification in the 13th round against John Feeney in Belfast. Yeah, I remember him, John Feeney. So, March the 2nd, 1983, Dave Larmore wins in the 12th round. No, he wins on points. Go again on that. So March 2nd, 1983, Dave Larmore wins on points over 12 rounds against Hugh Russell in Belfast, Ireland. November the 16th, 1983, John Feeney wins in the 3rd round. Referee stops the fight against Dave Larmore in Belfast, Ireland. June the 13th, 1985, Ray Gilbody, I remember him, he's a good amateur as well, wins, referee stops the fight in the 8th round against John Farrell in London, England. Then February the 19th, 1987, same year New Zealand won the first Rugby World Cup. But February 19th, 1987, Billy Hardy wins, referee stops the fight in the 3rd round against Ray Gilbody in St Helens. Then 1988, year of the Seoul Olympics, with Roy Jones in and Henry Akinwande and their stories. They're quite hard luck stories there. Obviously, Akinwande is more with the government stopping his dole money when he was. It was either, I think it was when he was in the Olympics. It might have been just before, saying he could get a job as a pro boxer. And obviously Roy Jones getting only silver with 5 judges then, and it was a 3-2 decision, not the regular 3 we see in pro boxing. It was 5 judges. It was a 3-2 decision, probably the worst decision I've ever seen in how many years of, how many years, 30 odd years of watching boxing. 35 years, yeah. So maybe longer than that, I think, yeah. But yes, that's 1988. So we go 1987. Let's do that again. So 1987, I waffled there. So February 19th, 1987, Billy Hardy wins. Referee stops the fight in the 3rd round against Ray Gilbody in St Helens. Then 1988, I'll come back to 1988. March the 17th, 1988, Billy Hardy wins by KO in the 2nd round against John Highland. Remember that, in Sunderland. And Billy Hardy used to work in a sort of sports centre in Sunderland, I remember. And that might have been the one that was in the actual leisure centre where he worked, I think. There was one fight that was. It might have been his big fight against Gabby Gonzalez. Or one of the Gonzalez brothers. Was it Gabby Gonzalez? Yeah, and he really did well in the first world title fight, Billy Hardy. And then Gonzalez got the measure of him in the 2nd fight. But it's quite a close one, I thought. But yeah, Ray Mancini, not Ray Mancini, Denny Mancini in his corner. So that's the end of the bantamweight British title fight history of boxing. First video, bang.